This is the Galaxy Report for Tuesday, October 3rd, 2006, episode 55. Welcome to the Galaxy Report. I'm Freakasaka. My co-hosts this week are Flipside. Flip, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing?
Doing well. Got a bit of a cold, so I may sound a little bit funny. I may sound like Flip this week, but hopefully by this weekend show, they'll go away. And my other co-host is Josh. Joshua, what's up?
I'm experiencing limerence in Schadenfreude.
This is like our third intro that we're doing for the show, and Josh has been trying to find synonyms for good the entire time, and that is what he came up with. I don't know what it means, and I'm not even going to bother asking him. The reason we're coming to you a special kind of midweek show is this past week we did an interview with Helios on Chapter 3, kind of went over, we asked a bunch of questions on, why things are the way they are, how come some things got left out. And I thought it'd be good to bring this out before the Stratix chat, just so everyone could take a listen, kind of try to find out what's going on, and anything that I didn't get a chance to ask, because you know what? I couldn't keep him for 3 hours for an interview. So anything I didn't get a chance to ask, we can go back and we can ask them, or ask the developers during the Stratix or Stratix
like
chat.
gunboats.
Exactly.
You forgot gunboats.
I apologize.
Very important. Space hater.
Oh, it's because I'm a fanboy.
You spent all week in space, though, didn't you?
Actually, I spent most of the weekend. Well, why don't we do a quick what you've been doing? Flip, what you been doing in game?
Well, I've been doing some of the, I guess you'd call it grinding, which the developers don't want people to grind out faction, but, when you don't know what the next rank cap is or whatever it is for the next, I don't want to be short 1 point, going into Thursday and having to wait a whole another week. So with my characters, I've been getting some GCW points.
Cool. Josh, what you been up to?
Been making mad deals, what I've been doing.
Oh.
I completed my Pseudomando.
Crazy Josh's.
I
You
tried
have mad
3
deals.
tickets. I tried 3 times to get them to recolor my armor through tickets. I think they stopped listening. No, it's not going. It's close. It's like it's the silver slightly off and the blue slightly off on one part, but other than that, it's fine.
Oh.
So
That's a pain.
Gyron's been prepping for his transfer here. I'll fill in for Gyron.
Ah, yes, Gyron has decided to transfer Gyron from Bloodfin to Starsider. And I had to follow along. Of course, I'm not going to pay $50 to transfer my character, so I made an EU freak. And I started grinding him up. I actually did, I think, all the missions on Tansari, and actually went to space, got the badge. I stayed in space long enough. In fact, part of the reason why I didn't want to do the show on Saturday was because I actually wanted to play the game. Everyone's always like, you never play the game. You're too busy playing your Xbox. Guess what? I actually played the game, and I was up till about 3 in the morning just plugging away, knocking the stuff out, and got my badge and got on the ground, and I'm up to about 18 right now.
I think I like the EU Ferric more than the regular one.
The EU Ferric plays the game.
Were you doing Legacy to level up? Or what?
Yep. Started doing Legacy. I'm into Jabba's right now. So
Karen deleted his old character he had before. He's doing Legacy again.
Yeah, he's waiting for me right now, supposedly. I don't know. He might have got tired of me. He was waiting for me last
right
night.
now.
That SOB. Should be here with us.
Yeah. Well, he was too busy making money and rested. 13 mil in 2 days.
That's crazy.
I know.
I might have to sell 1 or 2.
I don't know why it took me so long to get my Pseudomando.
Got to do the Gyron.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, what's the name of his new character? We should spoil that for him so everyone on Starsider can say hi.
Pythia.
If you're in Starsider and you're listening, yes.
He's made her, he made a woman and she's bald, and he's role-playing her as a lesbian, to be frank.
Is he actually role-playing it?
Sort of. Actually, I saw him today. There was this really annoying kid in Restless who was running around screaming, and he was like a Mon Calamari, and he picked him up in his car and he drove him around. He's like soliciting teenagers.
Oh, man.
When you transfer, you can't take anything with you except, was it credits or what?
You can take everything if you pay the extra money, which Kyron did.
Well, not everything except what's in your data pad, right?
Yeah, which resets all your quests, so you can just get all the stuff back.
That's cool.
Except for your...
What about badges?
His badges are gone. That was his thing, was holding him back.
Oh.
I told him, you really wanted the Elder Jedi badge and be associated with Jedi? And then he switched.
He transferred right that second. He clicked the button.
He was trying to get rid of that badge.
All right, well, I'm going to move us on. We're going to go ahead and cue up the Helios interview, play that for you guys now. And just remember, when I did this interview, it was right after the Chapter 3 went live, so I didn't have all of the issues that everyone was running into. So before you start calling me a fanboy and saying I didn't ask a certain question, I didn't have everything that you guys would think I had. I just was basically going off of what people were saying about stuff on Test Center. So let's go ahead and play that for you guys right now. Joining us right now to talk about Chapter 3, some of the ins and outs and what's going on with it, is the lead game designer of Star Wars Galaxies, Helios. Helios, welcome back to the Galaxy Report.
Thanks for having me back.
Oh, man, there's a lot to go over. There's some stuff I got to give you guys props about. I have to beat you over the head about a couple issues, and then just some fun stuff we get to talk about. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start off with the Smuggler Expertise System. I'm wondering if you can tell us what was your guys' goal for the Smuggler Expertise System when you started out?
Well, so the Smuggler Expertise, like all the other ones, we're trying to get the expertise to focus around what we feel the essence of the profession should embody. So with the Smuggler Expertise, we wanted some elements of deception, definitely some elements that will help you towards the actual activities of smuggling, and just try and get the general feel of what playing a smuggler should feel like, which is really the overarching goal of all the expertises.
Do you believe you achieved what you guys shot for?
Well, I think we got pretty close with the expertise. The smuggling system itself, I think Addie did a really good job on it in the time that we had. I think there's more that can be done there, but I think the smuggling expertise came out pretty darn good.
Yeah, that's why I went into the trenches, into the smuggler forums, and I kind of asked them what their thoughts were on it, and pretty much they seemed to agree they liked the direction of the expertise system. The only thing that some people felt was maybe that the melee branch was a bit bit too powerful compared to the pistol branch. How do you guys go about balancing those? Is one supposed to be better than the other, or should they pretty much be the same?
Well, so we have lots of very painstaking and very detailed and large number of spreadsheets. And when I say that, it sounds kind of, like inflated, but really, if you were to see these things, I get scared sometimes looking at them. So those guys really put a lot of effort into trying to balance everything on paper. But, of course, in a game like Galaxies, it's very hard, if ever attainable, to get 100% balance in everything.
Right.
Plus, you don't actually want 100% balance in everything all the time. If you did games like rock, paper, scissors, wouldn't work as well as they did. If the rock was just as powerful as the scissor in all circumstances, then there would be no gameplay there. So, some extent of difference in ability and power, I think, is desirable. But we did intentionally make the melee stuff a little bit more powerful, just because it's more difficult to fight melee in our game. And there's some inherent advantages that ranged fighters have. So, and balance and numbers are things that we tweak on an ongoing basis, but as a first stab, we did intend on making it a little bit more powerful. And if it turns out over time to be too powerful, we can either raise the other stuff up a little bit, or lower those a little bit. But overall, I think it landed in the general ballpark where we wanted it.
Really, for the expertise system, that's about all I have. They seem pretty content with it, so I'm going to move on to the smuggling system. This didn't go over quite as well. I mean, you had people on both ranges, and people feel that this was it was a good framework, like a good place to start from. But why don't we start with you kind of explaining how the system works?
Well, so we sat down for a long time. Obviously, smuggling in Galaxies was a long time coming. And we sat down and, we really try to think about what is smuggling. The act of smuggling itself. Not even considering it in Galaxies yet, but just in general, what do smugglers do? And what we came up with is that, as many of the people on the forums as well came up to the same conclusion, I think, smuggling really is just delivering illegal goods from point A to point B, and there may be some surprises along the way, right? And it's very basic in general sense, that's what it is. So we looked at how much time we had available for the feature, and Addy did a really good job of speccing out the system, and what it ended up being is you find these underworld contacts, these shady people, and you essentially run missions for them. Or you can find contraband in the world that you can then smuggle. And as you get better faction with the underworld society, you get access to higher level missions. As you pass certain thresholds, you get access to certain rewards. You mentioned that it did sound like it's more of a framework than a fully featured action-packed, expansion type thing. And to an extent, that's very much true. We definitely have a lot of good ideas in the pipe about including spies and bounty hunters more in more interactive ways in that same system, to sort of build an interdependency between the professions. Maybe not dependency is not the wrong word, but interconnectedness. And so we have a lot of other things that we'd want to get in. But in the time that we had, I think we got a pretty solid start into the smuggling content. And over time, the system was architected so that over time we could easily add on to it. So I suspect that in the future we should see more additions to the system.
Now, there was some wondering about the communication with the whole planning of the smuggling system was going on. It seemed like with the smuggling expertise, Hans was really in the forums getting people's feedback, trying to find out, what people wanted. And the smuggling system, there wasn't so much of that during the development. It was more after it was put on Test Center. Then Addy was on, asking questions and tweaking. Is that up to the individual developer, or how does that work with how much input from the community they take or ask for?
So there are a couple different factors involved. One of the big ones is that we work with our partners at LucasArts and the marketing over there and the marketing folks here at SOE. And we make sure that information rolls out in the order that everybody can agree on. So it really depends on the feature. It depends on timing of the publishers. There are a lot of moving parts involved. It's definitely not up to the individual people implementing as to when that information gets dispersed. So, if there's anybody to yell at, you should probably yell at me for telling those guys not to spill the beans too early.
Right.
Usually by the time we get the TC, and you probably noticed that when we rolled up the TC Prime, there was a lot more back and forth on the boards between all of the developers and the player base. And that's simply because by the time we get the TC Prime, all of the do not disclose restrictions are lifted. So that's kind of where that comes from.
So really the guys are pretty much sitting there with a piece of paper and right above it's don't talk about, don't talk about, don't talk about, and they just have to follow along and wait for that to go away.
I don't know if it's quite that Stalinist, but to some extent we do tell them don't spill the beans about this just yet. Sometimes because the designs are still in flux, or too much in flux, and features are still in danger of being moved to other publishers, and it's a very dynamic and fluid environment here at SOE. Plans constantly change. there's constantly new marketing initiatives, and we just have to make sure that we work with everybody and that everybody's accommodated as much as possible, including the players.
Well, let's get into some of the concerns about the smuggling system. You kind of talked about it feels like this is the framework, that there's going to be a lot more after this. One of the things that people are finding out is really you can go through the whole smuggling system in a few days of hard grinding. Myself, I'm not going to spend that much time to get through it that quick, but there's a lot of people that they're talking 3 days, they get to tier 5 and there's nothing to do. Are there plans for implementing more of an end game, possibly with the inclusion of spice or something like that?
So I'm not sure exactly about spice. Our partners at LucasArts have expressed some concerns about the inclusion of spice in that, it doesn't feel very wholesome, neither here nor there.
Right.
But, we have thought about doing things like including like Jabba's theme park or Nim's theme park in these types of things. We also have come up with a couple of hooks for crafters that we could eventually implement at some point. Right now, we want to focus on the expertise systems, make sure we get those done, and the traders and the entertainer revamps. So, for now, this is probably all you're going to see for a while in regards to the smuggling stuff. Unless, something changes with the plan, and then who knows what could pop up next. But at this point in time, looking down the road, we have a lot of things on the back burner and maybe some low-cost features that we can add over time as we're doing the expertises and the normal publish cycle. But nothing is concretely on the schedule at this point.
And you mentioned Jabba and Nims. That's one of the disappointments that seem to be coming from the smuggling community on this, is that those factions weren't included in the system, even if it just meant going to like Jabba's theme park and talking to someone there. Was that something you would have liked to have incorporated into this?
No, definitely, and there was a lot of talk about it, and our content guys had spooled up some really good ideas in regards to that. Unfortunately, they were busy with other content-related features for that publish, so we didn't have time to get it in. What we did get in was really thanks to Addy. He spent more than one weekend working here trying to get that stuff done on time, and there's really a lot of system and framework under the hoods type stuff there that allows us to easily plug new content in over time once we're able to develop it, once we have more resources available to devote to it.
One of the things that especially like the Elder Smugglers miss is the cross-profession interaction. And you kind of brought some of that back with the bounty hunter being able to hunt smugglers, kind of the PvP missions. But they'd like more of the kind of like being able to interact with other players as the clients, where they're smuggling items for other players or possibly slicing, things like that.
Yeah, that's actually some of the content that we had thought about, where we would bring crafters into it and spies to some extent, and then have it hinge perhaps on Java's theme park somewhere. So there's a lot of ideas in that same direction that are floating around. It's a matter of unlimited wants and limited resources.
Okay.
As far as what we can put in the game, and there's literally an unlimited number of things that these guys have come up with here, that the players have suggested to us on the boards. It's just the reality, unfortunately, dictates that we have to live within the constraints of time, space, and so there's only so many things that we can get done in a given publish, and those things, unfortunately, didn't make it in.
Okay, I don't want to spend the entire interview talking about smugglers, so there's just a couple of other things that people have mentioned. I'm going to just rattle them off real quick. You kind of give me your thoughts on it, and then we'll move on. One of them is a third faction being the underground faction. There's been talk of it before. Any thoughts on that?
We've talked about it. There's some benefit to it. Right now, we still haven't really established two strong factions yet. I would be a little bit hesitant to add a third faction until we have more clearly defined Rebel and Imperial factions. Because right now we have issues of there's no factional identity really in the game with how fast you can switch faction. So I'd like to get that under control first before we start thinking about adding new factions to the game.
Okay. You mentioned the player smuggling for players. You kind of covered that. How about more space involvement with the smuggling system? Is that something you'd like to see?
Yeah, definitely. Addy was just in my office this afternoon and talked about some of the ideas that he had for space. And, of course, it's one of the more, dare I say, iconic activities, that the Star Wars universe has portrayed. So, yes, it is one of the things that we'd like to see more of. But, again, it's on the same shelf with wanting to involve spies and crafters and, other classes and professions in general in the smuggling system.
Okay. All right, well, I'm going to move on now to the officer expertise. Again, the officers seem pretty content with what they received. I'm just wondering, what were your goals? What did you guys think of when you were thinking of officer?
Well, so, we had considered doing the whole ode to squad leaders here, where there's more group-related things. We also, we did the same thing that we do for all expertises, where we sit down and we say, what is really the essence of this class, of this profession? And, for the officer, it was that leadership position that, it's the guy with the nickel-plated sidearm leading the charge across the field. And so that's kind of the direction we wanted to take it.
You mentioned nickel-plated sidearm, and I was going to ask, a little bit curious on the choice of pistols and one-handed weapons for officers. How do you guys decide what weapons go with what profession?
Well, I mean, it's sort of, we don't have a lot of, this is only an officer gun, this is only a smuggler gun. I mean, there's a couple of those here and there, but generally, especially what we do with the expertise, is just have a soft guide to where when you see someone out on the field, you can determine by their appearance what kind of skills they might have. So, in reference to the officer, when we thought about officers in the military, yes, on the battlefield sometimes you will see them with the same weaponry that others have, but generally speaking, officers have lighter armaments than the heavy infantry, and they tend to be more leaders and group facilitators than heavy weapons guys. So, for the officers in particular, that's how we came up with the concept of having them be better at wielding one-handed pistols.
There are some people who think that the expertise system kind of gates a player into using a certain type of weapon. What are the reasons for kind of guiding people into saying, okay, use a pistol or use a one-handed weapon?
Well, so the expertise is all about choices. If you want to be the quintessential officer or spy or whatever it is as defined by the game, then you will appear. There's an important distinction about visual appearance and recognition and even silhouettes to some extent in games. So what we wanted to do is, instead of making hard restrictions on things, we give people the option to use the things that we laid out, and if they do, they would get certain bonuses. So it's not a hard gate. You could just say, in fantasy games, you can say wizards can't wield two-handed weapons, period. Right? We're not saying that. We're saying you can wield whatever you like, but if you choose to wield the weapon that your class or profession specializes in, you will get certain bonuses.
Well, you guys kind of did the same thing with armor, and if I'm not mistaken, you are going to be removing those armor restrictions from the expertise system. Has there been any thought on doing that on the weapons and kind of making it more of, instead of like pistol or one-handed, you put your points in ranged or melee, and then you can choose the weapon that you want?
Yeah, I mean, we're always considering feedback and tossing some things around. Nothing concrete, I don't think, has been decided, but nothing's off the table ever. Okay.
Let's move on to the GCW. Last time we had talked to you, this is one of the things you said you really looked forward to in the upcoming year, was the Galactic Civil War. Kind of explain to us what went on with this revamp.
So, this really is the first installment of the GCW-related publishes. This is where we lay the framework foundation, so to speak. So with this chapter, what we did is introduce the ranking system. The old ranking system was somewhat meaningless in that there were various ways that you could essentially buy your way into a rank, or you could very quickly acquire it with no effort, and there weren't really any real perks for your efforts when you did get there. So what we wanted to do is remove that system and replace it with something more robust and something more extensible. So what we have now is a point system where players don't, first of all, compete with one another. It's more of you competing with yourself, right? It's an achievement based on what you can get done, not what you can prevent other people from getting done. So if 500 people put in the effort to become generals, you could actually have 500 generals. So speaking of generals, we have a list of ranks that you can progress through. The first several ranks you will never lose unless you choose to. Those are the enlisted ranks. And then we have the officer ranks, that officers are important in any war effort. And so the officer ranks actually require you to have continued input and continued participation in the galactic war effort. So the system in a nutshell is you do GCW-related things and you get points. And the system was architected in such a way that we can really give you points for anything that's ever decided is contributing to the war effort. So at this point in time, the most of it is just killing factional NPCs, killing factional players, and right now there's a limited number of crafting quests, I think, that will let you get to the first couple ranks so that you can get the old schematics. But the system, again, like the smuggling system, is open-ended, and we can add content to it as we have time to build it.
Is it something where a casual player can eventually work their way up to general? Or is it like, I know there's other games that have like a similar style of ranking where a person has to put in, 10, 12 hours a day for a few weeks to get to the top level. Is it similar to that, or is anyone going to be able to eventually work their way up?
So I'm a little reluctant to give you exact numbers, and I only say that because, numbers change all the time, and
right.
And the information I have may not be exactly accurate, but I think the last I heard is that the fastest we decided someone was going to be able to reach general was about 3 months, give or take. So it's compounded by the fact that past rank 6, i.e. rank 7 to 12, you actually lose GCW points. Not points, but your rating decays. So a casual player can eventually get to rank 6, which is the Sergeant Major level. However, beyond that, I would suspect that most casual players probably would not progress past maybe 8 or 9, which is the Captain and or Major ranks, because at some point it does require a significant amount of participation and daily and insistent work towards not only retaining but also exceeding your current rank. So really the higher ranks, especially 10, 11, and 12, are more aimed at the hardcore people who want to go the extra mile, and so they get the extra rewards for that.
Could you obtain that through PvE?
Sure you could. Right now it is clearly... so I'll take that back. Space is a pretty good way to get these GCW points, as a lot of people have figured out already. Space PvE, that is. On the ground, however, short of running factional missions from the terminals, player versus player combat in Restus and the static bases, for instance, point-wise, is more efficient than running through and killing NPCs. So just to give you an idea, the last time I looked at the numbers, it was about 3 points for a normal factional NPC, 12 for an elite, 25 for a boss, and ground PvP was... those numbers were augmented by various conditions in the battlefield. So you actually get bonuses for various battlefield conditions on the ground in PvP zones that you don't get in PvE. So in a lot of ways, PvP can be faster under the right conditions, but a lot of players have already found some fairly efficient ways, especially in space, to cap out their GCW points.
There are people who feel that the GCW is geared too heavily towards the PvP element and that PvE players are being left out. Are there plans of adding more GCW PvE content in the future?
Oh, sure. I mean, we've always talked about, especially including crafters and spies in particular, a lot of those things that just lend themselves automagically to what you would think about what would happen in the world. I mean, there's some easy wins there, right? I mean, spies, they go and steal secret weapon plans, and you have your stable battlefield professions like the commando and the officer. Those guys they're the infantry of the war zones, if you will. But they're also, I mean, the war is not just fought on the battlefield. The war is fought in many places and in many ways. And what we want to do first is establish the core of the war, which happens on the battlefield, and then we can fringe out from there and work on all the peripheral war efforts, like the supplying the troops, the spying on the enemies, the assassination of political figures, various things that we have in store and that we want to get to.
Player bases are making a comeback with this publish. What is different about them now?
Well, so we made some improvements to minefields, which you should be seeing shortly. We made some improvements to the turrets. We actually have the ability now to have different kinds of turrets, i.e. you can have kinetic fire turrets, you can have heat turrets, you can have acid turrets. We haven't exposed that functionality yet, but it's all there, and you should see some of those upgrades. And then they've obviously been hooked into the new GCW system, to where destruction of a player GCW base grants you GCW points based on the planetary control value of the structure themselves.
There was talk previously about adding like E-web cannons and all new bases to the game. Are those still in the pipeline?
They are still in the stack of things we want to do.
That'll be in the future, hopefully.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's definitely a very cool concept, right? We all want to get into the crazy entrenched gun and just blow stuff up from time to time. But, by the time we do that, that's a similar effort to introducing vehicular combat, actually, to looking at how our game engine is constructed. So it's a significant effort. Okay.
And that's one of the problems with mentioning something like way back in April that, oh yeah, we're going to try to do this E-web cannons, and then the publish gets there and they're not there, and people are a bit upset, but sometimes things just don't work out.
Unfortunately, I wish I could invite people up here for a couple weeks and, they can be witness to, I think in job descriptions they call it must be able to work in a dynamic environment, which basically means that things change from 1 hour to the next. And, in all fairness, there are a lot of moving parts, right? It's certainly not just myself deciding what happens or what goes in the game, right? It's not just the producers, it's not just the artists, it's not just the programmers, it's not just SOE, right? So not only are there multiple people, there are multiple departments, there are multiple companies involved. So change is one of those constants that will be with us until the end of time.
And stuff sometimes always sounds good on paper, and then you put it in the game, and just trying to get it to work properly with all the other, balance it out. And what's the point of putting in an E-web cannon that just mows everyone down? No one would be happy about that.
That is certainly also true.
There is some fear of the resurgence of fight clubs from the force ranking system days to try to upgrade, go through get more GCW points faster. What measures are being put into place to try to keep players from using tactics like these and tactics like clone camping?
Well, so you could do that to a certain extent, but you can only get so far every day. So, I mean, if that's how you wanted to spend your time, is line up and kill 500 people in a row, you could do that, but you wouldn't be doing yourself any favors over somebody who just plays the game normally and has fun during a regular day, a normal game session. There's really no inherent advantage to doing it that way versus just playing and having fun, because there are plenty of opportunities out there to gain the same advancement just using normal game mechanics versus trying to cheat the system, essentially. Which, that approach, it may be criticized by some, but it's just like with piracy, right? I mean, you can never completely secure a piece of software from being pirated, but you can make it not worth the effort, or you can, price the software competitively, and then most people will pay for it versus stealing it. So in this case, if you can get the same advancement from just playing the game normally and having fun with your friends, I don't see a whole lot of people going through the trouble of setting up the Fight Club-like scenarios to gain the advancement. With the FRS, there were some very specific flaws in the formulas and how everything was calculated, and the always existent drain on your rankings that almost mandated that you get your points that way. The GCW system was built much differently. I don't foresee that happening a lot.
Okay. You mentioned on the forums the possibility of adding a 5-day lockout timer when changing factions to try to eliminate some of the back and forth faction hopping. Does it look like something like that's going to be implemented shortly?
Well, so I can't say whether something that will be implemented shortly, but I can tell you that I tend to be a little more in the camp of I would rather people make, shall we say, clean breaks or hard decisions or whatever you want to call it. I would rather people make a decision and then stick with it, and then a lot of gameplay will actually evolve from the impact of those decisions. If all decisions are meaningless, such as the decision in our game to choose a particular faction, it's just not as rewarding in the end, I don't think, when your faction achieves something. So personally, if I had to make the game from scratch, I'm not sure that I would even design for allowing the switching of factions. In the game that we have now, I'm not sure that it is the correct thing to do that at this point in time, but I would definitely like to see it be a little bit harder, if not a little more punitive, to use an outlawed word in game design, to switch factions. Because I think it's actually detrimental in a lot of ways and to a lot of players when people just switch factions based on which faction is currently on top.
Right.
So I would like to see it, but again, that's not, one person doesn't make any decisions around here. So, I'm going to get together with the other designers and see what we come up with, and then, take it to production and see what they think. Because it is an important decision. It's a major part of our game, and we want to make sure that we actually serve everybody in the best way with whatever decision we decide.
There has been talk in the past of possibly making players choose one side or the other. Is that also an option, or it sounded like you were kind of shying away from bringing that aspect into the game?
Yeah, I don't think that at this point it would be prudent to restrict the movement between factions to that extent, especially considering how some of our PvE content is set up, particularly in space. So there are already some disconnects between space and the ground in regards to faction. I think fixing a lot of that and bringing a lot of that into line is the first step, and making it a little bit harder of a decision to switch factions, not necessarily leave them, but definitely to switch faction is a step in the right direction. And then, if a couple of people still insist on doing it, so be it. But I think the majority of faction hopping will be discouraged by a few small steps in the right direction, as opposed to throwing down the heavy hand and making everyone pick something and never be able to switch again.
There's people out there that they're unhappy about the imbalance in between the rebels and the Imperials. They say it causes an imbalance. People can't take control of the bases. Is there any thoughts on ways to try to maybe balance it out, maybe give an incentive to the team that's losing, or some way to try to even out the numbers? Or are you just leaving that totally up to the player base?
Well, so I think we found early on in our collective game development careers in the MMO space that leaving everything up to the player to self-regulate will in large ways not work. So there are some ways that we have thought about improving that, and you touched on one of them, which maybe as we realize an imbalance in a particular area, maybe we can apply some kind of bonus buff to the underpowered side, or perhaps officers on the underpowered side gain a temporary ability to call reinforcements. A couple of different things that we've thought about, but we wanted to make sure that the GCW framework was in place first, and a lot of the technology that we got with the GCW framework will actually allow us to do things like that much easier going forward. Before the new GCW system, or the point system, the ranking system, we didn't actually have the ability to weigh the sides and make certain determinations in the code dynamically as the fights go on about conditions on the battlefield. We actually got that technology in with the GCW revamp, and we're using it right now in determining who gets what and how many points in those types of situations. So there are some benefits right now on the battlefields, the PvP battlefields, or when I say battlefields, I mean restas and the bases, in regards to faction balance. And I won't spoil the exact magic behind it, but that now gives us some leverage to add in some of the other stuff, like what we're talking about here is helping out the underpowered or the understaffed factions. And I think if we make it a little more restrictive to change factions as quickly as people have been, you will see a lot more balance, because people won't be able to join the other side as soon as the other side has a slight advantage, which I think is happening a lot now.
That's good to hear. That'll make a lot of people happy, knowing that something like that is definitely in place. Real quick, what can we expect for the future of the GCW from this point?
Our number one priority right now is to finish up the expertise. And, while I certainly can't speak to what's on the official plan for next chapter, I think you can probably expect to see it, the main focus of those chapters to be the expertise, including entertainers and traders. So, probably for the next couple chapters, we'll be busy with expertises, and from that point on, it's really kind of blurry. So I can't give you any details, but suffice it to say that there are meetings being held as to what the next thing is as we speak. So
awesome. Okay, I'm going to go on to the UI and some miscellaneous things from this chapter, and we'll wrap this up. First, I want to thank you guys. Double toolbars back makes a lot of people happy. Resizable radar and the return of the combat log.
Yay.
With those changes, it seems like you guys are kind of gearing things more towards the way people want. Are there any thoughts of making the UI more customizable?
Yes.
I know the one thing that I was kind of looking forward or would be to remove some of the kind of the white artwork that seems to be around everything. Seems like that's slowly trickling away, and just to go the rest of the way, I like a nice clean look. Is stuff like that a possibility in the future?
We are definitely looking into things like that. I think we've got a couple of UI appearance improvements coming up and some upcoming releases here. We get a lot of input on our UI. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. We've talked about giving players the ability to customize the UI fully and completely. That would require some engine work to handle those custom UIs that people will build. Again, not to try and sound like a broken record here, but we want to focus on the expertise and get that done. We have minor fixes for the UI and some visual improvements that we'll push out in the meantime, but any major initiative will probably be delayed until after the expertises are done. Expertise is especially critical at this point because so many classes have them and some don't. So we want to make sure we get those guys up to speed as fast as possible.
Okay. The one thing we did notice about Chapter 3 was that there's no addition to the Legacy quest with this publish. What happened to that? Is that something with everything that was going on, it kind of got pushed back, or, we're just curious.
Yeah, so, Chapter 3 was pretty jam-packed with stuff, and if we were going to get all that stuff in there, we had to delay the Legacy stuff until afterwards. So we'll pick up on it. We'll pick up with the Legacy stuff as soon as we can. But again, we want to focus on expertise first.
Okay. And then wrapped up with one last question. Any possibility of you giving us a sneak peek of something from Chapter 4?
Yeah, more expertise. Beyond that, we're probably going to start working on entertainers here pretty soon. You won't see that for Chapter 4, but we want to take our time with it. So some of our guys will probably start working on that here pretty soon. And then we want to get out the rest of the combat profession expertises. We don't want to leave those guys hanging for too long.
Right. Is Trader still on the schedule for 4, or is that different now?
I'm not sure that it's going to be in for 4 or not. Again, producers are looking at the schedules now and making refinements, but it is coming up very soon. We're starting to spool up some tool work here internally to help us with any changes that we're going to do there. And we don't want to rush the trader revamp or the entertainer revamp because we understand it's critical, and we want to make sure that everybody's happy with what ends up happening.
Well, I think that just about wraps up the questions I have. Helios, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us and give us an explanation on some of these things.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
Okay, welcome back. Josh, let's start with you. What's something from the interview that really stuck out in your mind that you, didn't expect, found enlightening?
Alas, poor traders. We knew you well.
Oh, man. I was kind of surprised when I found out that traders, not so Chapter 4 as we thought.
Welcome to Commando's position. Commandos, welcome to traders. So I'm happy, but I'm also disjointedly sad.
Well, it kind of makes sense. I mean, combat professions completely out of they're completely out of whack right now. You have 70% of the professions with expertise. Maybe not 70%.
It makes sense to roll out all the combat ones and then just it's logistically correct, but it's like Restus. You can see why they do it that way, but it sucks if you're the
poor
one
traders.
Poor traders. Can't they just give them those stupid Marauder schematics that are on Test Center that have been there since the combat upgrade beta?
Here you go, guys. Just take this for now. We swear. As soon as the expertise is done. I did try to get some clarification afterwards. I realized I forgot to ask if Trader's not 4, is it Commando and Medic? And I haven't heard anything, but then I saw that Hans was already asking Commandos on their thoughts. So
yeah, Hans has been really good at reading our stuff, but he's also been really good at ignoring the dicks who want. God, we need a 9K friggin' resist this. We're going to be, Commandos should be pure damage. I mean, people The biggest problem they have is looking at Commando when they just see the 2 dots. They don't realize Commando has to be played a specific way. It's not the Swiss Army knife class.
Okay.
Do damage.
Okay, Captain Commando, this isn't the Commando show. This is the Chapter 3 recap show.
I'm honored.
So, save your stuff for Saturday. We'll get to it then.
I'm mad.
What about you, Flip? What's something you took from the interview?
When they were talking about, when Helios was, you and him were going back and forth about, like, what was the gun for, you were mentioning mowing people down with a gun. That wouldn't be really fun to have.
Oh, the E-Web.
The E-Web. That'd be fun to have, but how would you actually really implement it into where it would be fun to have and use rather than, like you said, mowing people down? It's not going to be...
Well, I'm thinking with the E-Web, part of the problem you run into is one, I think the damage it's going to cause. You would think something like that would have to cause a lot of damage, and it might be a balancing issue. And the second thing is, I think part of the reason we were going to get the E-Web was the collision detection system. And with the delay in the collision detection system, I think something like the E-Web kind of got pushed back until
I think the E-Web would have worked for base defense for the PvP bases. I mean the old bases, not the zones.
Right.
If you could only use an E-Web there, I mean, they wouldn't have much of a balance issue. But if you used it, if you were sitting there at the hand with the E-Web shooting Jedi, then you got a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, E-Web's not so great. I mean, the guys in the Empire didn't use it to very good effect.
Well, the thing that I kind of got from the interview, and it's something that people like the smugglers were talking about pretty much from the second they started testing the smuggling system on Test Center, and even like with the GCW revamp, is both times he kind of we talked about it being a framework, and it kind of at first you get a little bit ticked off. It's like, wait a second, we've been waiting for this for how long, and all we've gotten is a framework. But then when you really stop and think about it, and I've kind of done that. Really, they've been working on this stuff for a month and a half. So in a month and a half's time, it's not only that they just did like a quick revamp, they wrote a lot of the code for these systems. It's not like they just took another system and kind of like glossed it over. It's like he talked about with the GCW system. They put in a lot of things that will allow them to add later, kind of like with the we talked about being able to see, like, pretty much on the fly what side is winning and being able to kind of try to balance things. And I know that's something that people were kind of hounding me about after last week's show was, you guys didn't talk about, them balancing sides and it's going to, large imbalances. Now with them, like, kind of rewriting the groundwork, they can watch that stuff and they can try, going in there and balancing stuff up. I think the major thing was not really. I think it's the same thing that kind of like it kind of hounds this game. It's kind of it's been it's kind of been lingering over the entire time is communication. At some point, it would have been nice if they would have come in and been like, okay, guys, I know you guys have these great ideas for the smuggling system. We know you want Jabba's in there. We know you want Spice in there. We know you want this. We know you want this. But guess what? In the amount of time that we're given, we can't get all that stuff in. We can get a framework, and down the road, we can continue to add to that. But right now, we have to put in like a basic system, and we can build from there. And
while you're on Spice, do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
LucasArts is like retarded and thinking that. I mean, of all the things in the game that are so inappropriate and people get away with, drug use is what they focus on. That's Spice.
Illicit drug use, yes.
I mean, they even had it in Star Wars. You want to buy some death sticks? I mean, come on. I mean, people go around with names like "I'm a whore" or Jack Hoff or stuff like that, and they get away with it. But then we can't use Spice because it's inappropriate.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is how come Spice was okay for the first 2.5 years of the game, and all of a sudden it's like, got to get rid of it. Got to get rid of it. Can't have it anymore. So. And I think it'd be perfect if you take my idea from the last show, where if you use Spice on a consistent basis, you end up getting like a couple day debuff to your health stats, and you have to get like a detox move from a medic. That would be part of the medic expertise tree. So
right, and also like what I said, ID would have to be along in there too, maybe
to get rid of them.
Well, to fix their face, their face is starting to get deformed from using so many drugs.
Get rid of the pit face.
When you get killed,
Diaz
your face should decay. Your face should get messed up when you get killed a bunch of times or in cap. You should lose teeth. Stuff like that.
Crystal meth teeth. I don't know. Anything else you guys got from that interview?
Well, just that I'm glad that traders are getting a better look at rather than, just, yep, that's good enough. I want to see something happen with them, but I don't want it to get ruined.
I must commend Helios on comparing LucasArts to Stalin. I mean,
no, it wasn't LucasArts to Stalin. It was the way I described them being told they can't talk about things to Stalin.
By LucasArts.
No, I was just saying in general. I wasn't even saying coming from LucasArts.
Read between the lines there. He meant LucasArts.
He did not. Stop trying to cause trouble.
I'm not trying to cause trouble. I'm commending him. I mean, I think
causing.
I don't like LucasArts.
We know you don't.
Why can't they put on it? I don't even start in Sam and Max. Keep going.
Just relax.
I can't relax. There hasn't been a Sam and Max game in years.
I heard they're supposed to be coming back, like redoing it, doing another one.
Yeah, LucasArts finally got rid of the property, and then they're kind of outsourced, I guess you call it. There's a trailer out for it now, but it's kind of in limbo too. It's somewhere around the place where StarCraft Ghost is.
So in nowhere, middle of nowhere.
Blizzard's back room.
All right, guys. Anything else you want to talk about? Anything I missed that I should have talked about?
What
am I going to be called a fanboy for missing? For not hounding them on?
You didn't ask him to pre-see you. Or I can't. Probably creature handler. You didn't give him any crap about that, did you?
I probably should have mentioned something about officer and creature handler and them being able to control a pet. I put the quotes up, pet.
You didn't bring it up how they took my move name for the GCW system.
I apologize. That wasn't out yet when I did the interview.
When did you do the interview? On Friday?
Thursday.
Yeah, it came out on Friday. Oh.
Yeah.
I have my days
Thursdays before Friday, bud. Oh, man.
Yep.
You
want to plug the site now? Or?
Yeah, let's do some plug-in.
Or you want to redo the whole episode again?
What's that?
You want to start over?
No.
For the 8th time?
No, I'm done. I want to get this edited and get it up. That way everyone can listen to the interview. I don't care about this filler stuff. Most people are just going to listen to the interview and bail, so I'm going to go ahead and tell everyone, make sure to check out the Galaxy Report poll that's up right now. It's Chapter 3, thumbs up, thumbs down. What are your thoughts? We also have a poll in our thread, in our forums, asking how come you're voting the way you did. Some people are giving a lot of, I think a lot of it's boiling down to the GCW and the smuggling system, it being a framework and them not really know beforehand. But if there's other stuff, feel free to let us know, and we'll incorporate that into next week's show. We also have the bug wiki for Chapter 3. I have that updated. I'm going to get that ready to send into Rogue 5 sometime this week. Just a quick update of what's going on with Chapter 3, the bugs that you guys are finding. And, someone was kind of like, well, maybe people are using the in-game bug system. Well, guess what? You can't track that. This is for the players to be able to track, see what's going on. And if you find a way around a certain bug, it's a good way to plug that in there and help, your fellow players work around. Oh, if you talk to this person and then this person, you can actually get the mission. But
Commando doesn't have 3 dots. You have 2. Moron.
There you go.
I see that every day. I see that in our Commando expertise thread.
Get ready for the next month and a half, people, because this is what Josh is talking about.
Well, wait till Garen gets on here. We'll team up on you.
God, I'm just going to take my headphones off and walk away and let you guys talk for an hour.
That works.
I know you love it.
I can talk about Commando forever.
Okay, I'm plugging donations, and I'm wrapping it up. Donations help keep the show going, help us improve sound quality, new programs. We've been actually testing some stuff, but of course all the programs cost money, trying to improve the audio quality. You can, what am I talking about?
Buying a new mic.
Donations. You can buy Josh a new mic. You can get us software to help make the show sound better. For only the cost of a cup of coffee a week.
That's right. You can either sponsor an orphan so he can live, or you can buy Josh a better mic.
It's not even a Starbucks cup of coffee. It's from one of those cheap coffee machines. But actually, we have 2 buttons up there. You can donate. It's a recurring subscription for $2 a month, or a one-time donation for any amount you see fit. we hear you. We know you like the audio quality improved. We're trying stuff. We're messing around with things. We really are trying to bring better quality. It's kind of hard with the systems we have and the people spread out as far as they are and the different equipment and background noise. But we are working on it. We have some ideas, and we have software we're playing with. So it's
if you keep complaining, we'll use Vent.
Yes.
Have like a beep every time.
That'd be nice.
Audio quality improvements are in the pipeline. Just want to let you know that right now.
Keep checking the site for updates.
Well, I think that just about wraps it up. Flip, Josh, thanks for joining me on a Tuesday night to get this taken care of. I want to thank Helios for taking the time to sit down, and I kept him way longer than I probably should have. I didn't expect to talk to him for as long as I did, but I really appreciate it. Those of you that didn't get, I didn't ask the questions you wanted, I apologize. I went to Wes, and I went to Bad Mr. Frosty. I went to Sush. I asked them, hey guys, what are you hearing from the community? They gave me a bunch of stuff. I trimmed down, tried to make it as streamlined as possible, get to as much as possible as I could. Another good thing is when we do these polls, like the Chapter 3 poll, leave your feedback. Leave your thoughts, because I pull a lot of that stuff. A lot of the ideas I got from the smuggling system, I got from when I went into the smuggler forums and asked them their thoughts. So that's what we're doing. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We will see you all on Saturday.